Welcome back to the Game Room. I'm your host Trevor, and this is a video response to the Gentleman Gamer's video about tension and the fear in RPGs. Now, it has been a while since he's posted this video, but a fortnight hath not yet passed. You see, long written down in the scrolls of YouTube, states that if a fortnight hath passed, when you make a response video to the original video, you'll be cursed with 3 days and 4 nights of intestinal distress. But luckily, I think I have passed this curse. So, let's talk about tension and fear in RPGs. This is a tough thing to accomplish, but practice it and pursue it at all times in your RPGs. Always try and bring that tension and the fear to the forefront when it deserves to be, and it deserves to be all the time. So, with practice, it will all fall into place. So what would step 1 be? Step 1 is setting the mood. Is this still a video about fear, or has it become romance? No, setting the mood is important. Try and dim those lights, or perhaps use candles if you can, so that shadows will dance and play around the gaming table. Now, when you dim the lights, you're trying to get into that mindset of when you and your friends would tell scary stories around the campfire. Try and get into that primal mindset of being around the flickering flame in those cold woods, and doing your best to cause your friends to have nightmares that very eve. So, when you dim the lights, remember that the character sheet is stark black and white, so you're not going to have any problem seeing that in dim light. You might have a problem seeing your dice, but there is a secret boon in that, because every single time that you roll the dice, you are reminding yourself and your players that it is only a game. There is nothing to fear. So, try and keep dice rolling in general during a horror game. Try and keep it to a minimum, because it's a reminder that you are playing a game, you're not in danger of being rent asunder by Shoggoth. So, speak quietly at times, and your players will lean in, perhaps unconsciously, as you speak softly and carry a big stick. And at that moment, when all seems quiet, that's when you give them the shock. That is when the zombies will burst through the barricade, all frothing and gnashing teeth, and they grab Ted and they drag him into the night. So, there are 2 types of fear that you can wield as a game master. There is the tension, and that is the slow, grinding fear. That is turning the screws as the zombies are clawing at the barricade, as their incessant moaning echoes through the night, as the characters, unable to sleep, find themselves counting their dwindling ammo and praying, hoping that they will at least once more see that sliver of the sun rising over the horizon before their lives end in gnashing teeth and arterial spray. Now, the second type of fear that you can bring in, that's the shock. That is when the zombies do, in fact, burst through the barricade. That is the shock of combat in D&D, and that is the shock of a deep one bursting forth from the sea in Call of Cthulhu. This is a frightening shock that just happens right in front of the players. They don't have any time to think. When you're trying to shock the players, perhaps slam them on the table, and it is not time to roll initiative. No, it's time to just act. Just, but what do? Bip, bip, bip. Keep it going fast, keep it going furious, and keep it going frightening when it is time to shock the players. Now, speaking of zombies, and the old Resident Evil games, which I very much enjoy, they brought in tension and shock by giving you, the player character, dwindling or very low resources. You see, they would give you maybe 2 shotgun shells and a knife, and expect you to survive a haunted house filled with zombies, mutants, and puzzles. Now, limit the player character's ability to do violence. This is very important. When you put a weapon in the hands of a frightened man, he will show no fear. I heard that on the radio somewhere, and this advice rings true in RPGs. Try and give them either opponents that laugh and shrug off their feeble attempts at mortal weapons of their axes and their guns, or give them very low resources, like very few bullets, so that 1 or 2 9mm bullets, that is a treasure trove, and you may perhaps want to save that last one for yourself. Also, as far as limiting resources, limit healing. Now, this is already built in games like Call of Cthulhu and things like that, but in D&D, well, don't destroy the cleric's ability to heal, but make healing a special thing, or perhaps make the fights so brutal that the healing is may have to be used a lot in that fight. And so when they're thinking about where their next fight will occur, perhaps it is better to do some flight instead of the fight. Now, that is very important. If your player characters are presented with a dangerous situation and they are seriously considering flight over fight, well, some congratulations are in order, because the horror genre has just been achieved. At the heart of the horror genre is disempowerment. Now, some players absolutely hate this. They want their RPGs to be filled with powerful abilities, stupendous skills, and destructive spells. Now, if a player cannot set this aside, if they have to have these things, well, that player is going to have to sit out of a horror game. You see, every single player at the table, GM and players included, they all must buy in to the horror of disempowerment, and they must all sell in character that fear. That is the economy of fright. Buying in and selling. So fill your pockets with the dirty dollars of fear in your games. Now, when a player fears for their character, then both the player and the character are sharing this tension, they're sharing this fright. When they fear for their mortal, their vulnerable, their very human, or elven or dwarven character, they are sharing this fright. But don't go overboard with the disempowerment or the vulnerability of a character. You see, when you have a Call of Cthulhu game where you need to show up with a stack of 15 character sheets, that is too vulnerable. That you don't have time to become invested in your character. You do not have time to become attached. When they're going through dozens of characters, like, oh, Joe the plumber ate it, it's time to bring in Bob the builder. Oh, Deep One got him, it's time for Francois the artisan cheesemaker. When it's just a name and a title, when it's just a name and an occupation, you're not connected to that character. You need the characters to stick around. You need them to get out their goals. You need them to get out their aspirations. You need to get out their fears and their storylines. These things need to come out of the character, and the player needs to feel invested and connected to them so that they will fret for that character. You need to connect with them, get those aspirations out so that those things now become in danger of Deep Ones or Cthulhu dashing those aspirations to the ground. You want those to be important, you want the characters to be important to the player. Now, approach a horror game with the same thought process that you have when going into a haunted house during Halloween or when you're riding a roller coaster. Approach it with the thoughts of, oh man, I'm going to get scared. I'm going to scare my friends are going to scare me, we're all going to have a frightening time, and we're all going to have an awesome time.